Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Rail Safety Week intro podcast. I'm delighted to welcome Richard Hines, who is Chief Inspector of the Railways, with us today. I'm Elaine Clark, Chief Executive of Rail Forum, and we help to coordinate Rail Safety Week on behalf of the industry. So, Richard, welcome.
Thank you so much, Elaine. It's great to see you and great to talk to so many colleagues.
And you're also chair of our Rail Safety Week steering group, so thank you to you and your colleagues for that. But to kick us off, we've got Rail Safety Week 15th to the 21st of June this year. Why do you think it's so important that we have this focused week?
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity, Elaine, to bring the whole industry together to focus on safety, not only for passengers, but for the public and the thousands of people that use the railways across our country every single day. For me, safety is fundamental to everything that we do, and industry does, and this week really kind of helps reinforce that shared commitment.
Absolutely. And I think most people would say, well, we've got a really safe railway in the UK. Um, why is it still important to keep having this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, you're right to reflect this really important and kind of statistically to be proud of as an industry because we do have one of the safest railways in Europe and indeed the world. But that's been the result of years of collaboration, years of professionalism, and years of continuous improvement to get us to that point. And safety is never something that we can take for granted. And for me, Rail Safety Week is an opportunity to reflect, to learn, to share good practice, and I guess really remind ourselves that every small decision that people take can have huge, significant consequences.
I think that's absolutely spot on. And I've spent the whole of my working life in different safety critical industries. And no matter how good your safety performance is, it can sometimes become very easy to take that for granted. But you're only as good as with the behaviour of people, and of course your assets on a day-to-day basis. So it's really important to keep that always at the forefront of people's minds because everyone's busy. And it's very easy to just lose that focus, isn't it? So I think you're absolutely spot on. And how do you see some of the key challenges at the moment for us as a railway, Richard? And I suspect you could probably talk for hours on that. But what are the big headlines for you?
Yeah, and I'll try and keep this brief, but just to start with my own reflection, Elaine, I've been fortunate to work across lots of major hazard industries too, but you're absolutely right to reflect that rail is a kind of complex environment. And our work is diverse, it's spread across the industry, it focuses on obviously operational risks, obviously on infrastructure, but also on sort of workforce safety type issues too. So that includes things like workforce safety, such as track worker safety, things like fatigue. We focus quite heavily on infrastructure risk, both in relation to track, but also civil assets that exist and support the industry and many structures across the infrastructure. Things like level crossings, things like trespass, still feature quite heavily in the risk profile. And don't forget the railway has an important job in managing change. And I just want to sort of draw a point out on this in that the industry is adapting, as we know. We've got GBR on the horizon, and that presents huge opportunities, but also a really kind of sobering reminder that we need to keep on top of issues as we go through that transition. Accountabilities have got to be clear, people have got to be on top of the day job, and the expectations and accountabilities have got to be really well defined from the start. We can't take our eye off the ball in that respect. I think also there's lots of new technologies being introduced across the system, and we have to keep on top of that and make sure they are fit for the railway that will support people and passengers' journeys.
Absolutely, and I think you're absolutely right to mention both that technology angle and the people angle with change. As we said, people are really busy, and if they're faced with change as well, then it's very easy to take your eye off the ball. You mentioned level crossings and trespass. What role do you think the public has and can play in railway safety?
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, Elaine, a sort of really honest reflection is that many incidents involving members of the public are avoidable. People that are in parts of the system where they perhaps shouldn't be. So, for me, it's about people staying alert. It's about people understanding the environment. And railways are a dangerous environment. This is heavy machinery, heavy bits of kit that travel at speed. People's perception of risk on railways is perhaps different to other environments, but it's really clear from the industry stats that there's been a particularly bad period on level crossings where a number of people have lost their lives, where they've been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I strongly view that could have been prevented in many of those instances. And obviously, trespass is a huge issue. People should not be going onto the railway and interacting with parts of the infrastructure where real risk exists. And I suppose the key point from this is the whole system requires everyone to play their part. That's not just the industry, but also those that interact around it. And that, I think, is a really important feature of this week. And just kind of continuing that conversation on these really critical issues.
Yeah, and I think that's some of our passenger operator colleagues and freight operator colleagues that get involved with Rail Safety Week. They tend to put a really great emphasis on that outward looking, the impact that we can have on our passengers and our communities. And that's one of the really positive things that I think Rail Safety Week does is actually reach out and bring in those people and help to raise their awareness in a way that perhaps we don't always have the opportunity to do on a day-to-day basis. So it's really important for that, as well as our workforce safety. Couple of last questions, if I may, Richard. So what would you say, what would your message be to people working in the industry during Rail Safety Week?
So the first thing I'd say is that I've been really impressed in previous years in terms of how industry has responded to Rail Safety Week, and there's some really fantastic initiatives that companies take forward here, right across the whole spectrum: the supply chain, the industry, train operating companies, infrastructure managers, even those that work in schools and education to influence young people, their behaviours, their interaction around the railway. But I think the main message, Elaine, is one of thanks that I'd like to give to people that work across the industry. So whether that's frontline staff, signallers, engineers, maintainers, operators, contractors, or even those that have to deal with emergencies and response, just a huge thank you. I think our people work really hard every day to keep the network running safely, and they deserve huge credit for that. And Rail Safety Week for me, in addition to the things that I've spoken about, is a real opportunity to say thank you to them for their professionalism and their commitment in delivering this work for us.
No, thank you for that. And I would echo that thanks. And we're starting to see some really great posts on social media, just as we're speaking now, over this last week or so, of things that companies have got planned, which they're sharing in advance, which means other companies can think, oh, we could do that, or we could do something similar or slightly different, but that works for them. So the more companies share about what their plans are, the more others will get involved and learn and jump on that, which is absolutely what it's about. So finally, what do you hope that we can achieve during Rail Safety Week 2026?
So the thing I'd really like is to encourage the continuation of those conversations about safety at every level of the industry, and I do mean that, at every single level, all the way from the top chief executives, managing directors, around to those that are out on the front line doing this work every single day, and also across the wider public too. I think that's a really important area that we need to focus on, as I've mentioned. And a strong safety culture really depends and it's built on things like openness, learning and shared responsibility. And ultimately the goal is simple: everyone goes home safe at the end of every single day. And I'm really proud to have worked with you and your colleagues in putting this week together, to chair the steering group. And I am so looking forward to this week and continuing the conversation on safety. Thank you so much, Elaine.
Thank you, Richard. And we'll explore some of the things we've talked about at our Safety Week conference on the 15th of June. So I'm really looking forward to that. And to everybody out there, please do keep telling us what you've got planned. We're picking those posts up and those emails up on a regular basis. We will share as much as possible before and in advance of the week, and then during the week, and of course a wrap up after the week. But if you've not yet thought about getting involved, please do. And to everyone out there, stay safe and have a good Rail Safety Week. Thank you. And thank you, Richard.
Thanks very much, Elaine. Take care.